Support for this podcast comes from Dynamic. Dynamic Air Quality Solutions manufactures IAQ products based on the science of clean air. Dynamic's Clean Air Defense System products are supported by technical and communication IAQ training that is second to none in the industry. For more information on how to get your team confident in communicating IAQ challenges and solutions on every call, email Michelle Hogan at mhogan@dynamicaqs.com.
The reality is, like, those techs will go to the local supply house, even though they need 5 half-inch copper couplings. They pick up 10 for that just because. And as an owner, you just cringe because it's not their money, you know, and that's.
They don't think about it.
And they don't. And before you know it, the owner has 200 of those half-inch copper couplings once they go out there and clean out the truck. And then, you know, they have probably just as much back in that warehouse. But again, a lot of the data that we provide back to these members, whether they're VMI sized or not. And again, this is what I did for 6 years. And
sure,
I've rolled up my sleeves with many of the members out there just to kind of help them get that initial step going, because a lot of members just don't know where to start. But you know, having done that, we can help kind of give them that nudge. Hey, this is what we need to focus on. And then I tell all the members that if we're the primary supplier, we'll pull down a usage at the end of the year. We'll bump it up against the initial list that we identified. Hey, what have you bought from us that has volume to it? And then what items haven't you bought? Because at the end of the day, the stuff that's sitting in the warehouse, let's get that stuff out and let's bring in some of those faster moving SKUs. So again, probably one of the biggest misconceptions that I still hear in this role is members will come up at the shows or whatnot, say, we can't do business with you because we aren't a VMI. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because we work with 1 truck operations and we work with 100 truck operations. And
sure,
you know, we have a program for really anybody in between.
Welcome to the Successful Contractor, powered by Success Group International, a show for residential contractors about residential contractors. We chronicle business journeys, share insights, and celebrate successes in this wonderful industry. I'm your host, Bob Houchin. Hello there, SGI family and other contractor friends. I'm so thankful you're here. As a reminder, all episodes of the Successful Contractor Show are available on YouTube as well as your podcast player of choice. I'm incredibly excited to bring to you a conversation I had with Ryan Fidgeon, a national account manager with Home Depot Pro. I don't have to tell anyone listening or watching to this what a crazy time it is to be in the contracting world as it pertains to materials and equipment. And that's why I wanted to have Ryan on. He will share with you some insights into what materials may be going up in cost, as well as which ones may become more difficult to find. And Ryan will also share with you what you can do to plan for both of those issues. But that's not all we're going to talk about. Ryan is going to share his wealth of insight into VMI programs, or vendor management inventory programs, where the Home Depot Pro takes over your inventory, making your life easier and your business much more profitable. So if you're looking to scale significantly, this information is definitely for you. So I hope you enjoy my interview with Ryan Fidgeon of Home Depot Pro and take away a nugget or two. Ryan, thank you so much for taking some what's very, very valuable time these days to sit down and talk with me and SGI members and other contractors across the country. Would you please do me the favor of introducing yourself, share your name, where who you work for, and what your title is with them?
Hey, Bob, thank you for having me and hosting this. My name is Ryan Fidgeon, National Account Manager for SGI. We've been proud partners for over 20 plus years, so completely understand how you guys go to market. And really over the last 15 months, I've been able to make a lot of new relationships. Have had a lot of longstanding relationships with a lot of SGI members out there, but you know, I think with a lot of the headwinds that we have had over the last couple of months, new doors have opened. So it's just been a great partnership over the years, and has just been extremely fruitful, I think, from both ends, the member end as well as ours.
Sure. You know, I forgot to mention to you earlier, I'd love to ask you about your background. How did you get into this space? I'm assuming you're always in some kind of a sales role of some sort.
I was. So I did financial services for a couple years. And probably about a year and a half, and that just didn't work out at that point. I had my daughter, and then I wanted to get into something a little bit more secure. So then I was in the wine industry for about a year or so, and
oh, nice.
It's kind of a unique industry because it peaks. They call OND, October, November, December. Obviously, with all the holiday gatherings, that's where a bulk of your business comes from.
Right.
And at that point, that was an outside sales job in Jacksonville, Florida. And I took the leap of faith to go work for what was Interline Brands 14 years ago. And that's when I first came on with the company. At that point, I started in inside sales. I did that for a year, and it just wasn't me. I'd much rather be out in the public, having the face-to-face interaction, just getting out in the field, rolling up my sleeves, just, learning about the business. So I was fortunate enough after that first year to post out, and I ended up working within our supply chain department. And within that supply chain department, I was a project manager, and I was in charge of not only selling the vendor managed inventory program, but overseeing that entire process and then implementing it into the transition. So that's where I think working with a lot of the SGI members, that's really where I got my feet wet, but really started to learn the industry as a whole, because, these techs all love talking, these owners all love talking. And that's where I just learned so much. Now, unfortunately, with that job came a ton of travel, and the worst years, about 120 nights on the road. And at that point,
Holy cow.
So, just living out of a suitcase, going to do a setup, coming home on the weekends, washing clothes, and then, right back out. So you kind of become numb to that entire process. Just what you're accustomed to doing. And then I just ended up hitting a wall with living out of a suitcase. And at that point, Chris Church, who used to be in this role prior to me, he said, "Hey, I'm leaving the company," and they asked me if I wanted to take on this role. So, I've been working with the SGI members for the last 7 years doing this. And again, it's just, I truly enjoy it because sales reps, friends, family, they ask me, what I do on a day-to-day basis. And that's what I love about this job, because you just don't know what you're walking into every single day. One day it's working on spreadsheets, other days it's reaching out to customers. Another day could be, fires potentially, within the organization that I need to get involved with. But, that's what I truly enjoy about this job. It's not regimented by any means. It's, one day I'm going this way, the next day I'm going that way. So it's truly been a great position over the last 7 years, and have truly enjoyed just making new relationships out there, partnerships.
That's great. That's great. Now, I guess you got people you work with across the country, then members and reps and all sorts of stuff, right? So you're in tune with what's going on.
So I do. I roll up to Jeff Ivan. He is the director of national accounts. And then we have over 50 field sales reps that I'm in constant communication with. And then we have an inside sales team, which is based out of Jacksonville, Florida. There's 4 people over there on that team. And, maintaining the relationship with SGI, obviously driving the initiatives for HD Pro, but then also helping out a lot of the members, a lot of the sales reps get into the members' businesses and just kind of bridge that gap. So got my hands in a couple of different jars out there, but, just trying to bring everything together seamlessly.
Yeah. All right. So remind everyone, when did Barnett become HD Pro? When did that relationship start? I couldn't remember myself. It just kind of seemed to happen, and then it was there.
Yeah, so that acquisition went down roughly about 6 years ago. I remember it was the Boca Expo, and I think that announcement went out. It was probably 2-3 weeks prior, and I remember just getting inundated with questions during that expo. And at that point, I really didn't know anything, but I can honestly say that, a lot of the pushback that I was getting at that show is like, "Oh no, you guys are going to turn into retail." And just, they have been very slow and methodical about this process. And we even brought in, it was a representative from Bolden Brothers out of the gate. So a lot of our execs, they wanted to make sure that we were doing the right things for our business. And a lot of guys were just saying, hey, we love this idea. We love this concept. So, we are running a lot of the ideas and visions from the members that we've been working with over the years.
That's great.
Again, they did not want to disrupt what we have going on. And, I think just kind of what we've seen over the last 6 years, probably over the last 2 to 3, there's been more customer facing projects that I think a lot of the members can see and feel.
Yeah.
But, the first couple of years, it's all aligning the titles, the HR,
Sure.
so on and so forth. That doesn't really impact a lot of the members. But it's been a great transition, in my opinion. And, we aren't even close to being finished.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say, have you seen the wall, the stigma of Home Depot? And because I know that I still hear that, because I've been doing this for a long time and talked to a lot of people. They go, Home Depot? I mean, they were trying to get our business, years ago. That was a thought, but that's not the case really anymore.
Yeah, and the reason why the Home Depot ended up acquiring us is because they see the growth within the pro market. I mean, I think
Right.
we all refer to the Home Depot. We just kind of think of the DIYers and all that stuff, but um, whatever crystal ball they were looking into, I think they nailed it, because business has just been through the roof even
Yeah.
prior to the pandemic and whatnot. But
Right.
the amount of resources and capital that they are dumping into this just to kind of make it more seamless. One of the things that we're working on, that we're eventually trying to pull the R&Ls and the SIAs out of the world. And with what Amazon has done to that local delivery fleet, I mean, that I think is kind of the vision and where we're trying to go, because I think every member at some point has had that broken toilet or the dented water heater, being delivered.
Sure.
But the reality is if we can get that onto our own fleet versus leaning on R&L and SI and all that stuff, it's I think a lot less likely for damages to occur. So
Sure.
they're looking at adding 100 new cross docks throughout the country. So, I think as that starts to expand, hopefully we start getting on our own fleet, and those kind of issues start to become minimized. So I think they'll always be out there. That's just reality.
Sure.
But good stuff in the works.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, everything's faster now. It's amazing what Amazon has done with just personal deliveries. I mean, we all get boxes, right? And I can see that you guys see the benefit of doing that as well for businesses. That'll be exciting to see as that unfolds.
Yeah, and I know that there are some markets too where we are testing kind of a hot shot concept, and the thought process is behind that is that any business owner wants to keep the tech on site. So if he forgot to put in his Honeywell 6000 T-stat or expansion tank or a surge protector, something like that, eventually the member will be able to go out there, order it online, and then we will deliver it to the job site same day. Might charge a small fee or something like that, but I think everybody realizes kind of the soft cost savings, because it's 30
100%.
minutes to a store, 30 minutes back. And who knows, what they're picking up in the store. It's probably the surge, and I joke about it, probably some beef jerky, Red Bull as well. But that's kind of the vision there.
Yeah. Well, it's a convenient world now. That's where people have placed their priority. Back in the day, it was how do we save every cent, and now it's like people will pay a premium for good service that takes care of customers, that takes care of your people. So, that's good. That's interesting. Look behind the curtain. I like that. Let's boil down some of the basics for people that might be watching that aren't part of the program, aren't an SGI member. What exactly does being a part of Home Depot Pro offer the contractors you work with? What are those exclusive benefits?
Yeah, so like I said, we've been working with SGI, excuse me, for the last 20 years. They get special terms by being an SGI member. There's a certain price class that all verticals end up getting, and we traditionally have been a catalog company, and I think we'll still have those, but I think eventually we will end up phasing it out. But having been in the industry, for 14 years or whatnot, nobody shows their cards out there online. Everybody has like MSRP or whatnot. So once we open up an account and they create a user, password, all that stuff, they can then go out there and see that special pricing that they get.
Yes.
So, the disclaimer that I let all the SGI members know, understand how we go to market. We have that national footprint, and if we
Yes.
come to Bob's Plumbing and we say, the expansion tank is $50, for example, and you're picking it up for 40, we're willing to work with you. So,
Sure.
we aren't as regional in price per se
Yeah.
versus maybe like a local plumbing supply house, but, we are willing to work with you guys. And I think what
Sure.
a lot of the members will see when they go out there is that we're competitive across the board. There are some items we might be priced a little bit better on, some items we're a little bit off, but where we're out there in left field, call me out on that, and
Right.
I'm willing to work with a lot of the members. So,
Yeah.
you get that competitive pricing. You also get quarterly rebates from us. That's my job, is to track those rebates and provide it down to Kevin Gursky and Elena. And
Sure.
then there's also those double dip vendors that a lot of the members can lean on it. And again, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind for those guys. They don't have to track any of that stuff.
Right.
And then we just rolled out a program last year with my counterpart, Jeff Capone, with Pro Extra. So now a lot of the members can go in there and pick up the plywood, the cinder blocks, the concrete that we don't stock in our main channel distribution, and get an annual rebate through that Pro Extra program.
That's awesome.
So it's talking to Jeff last week, he has just been extremely just ecstatic with the amount of growth that he's seen over there, because the reality is everybody out there uses the Home Depot. They
Sure.
might not like
They do.
going in there and
They don't want their guys in there, but it's fact of business. Yeah.
and it's just they want to kind of control their cost of goods and whatnot. There's obviously the difference
Totally.
between the retail side, and I represent the wholesale side. So for
Sure.
the planned purchases, I tell the members come through my vertical. But
Yeah.
then when the techs forget something or they need that sheet of plywood, that's when you lean on the local Home Depot. And
Sure.
regardless of what vertical you're utilizing, you're still going to get rebates when it's all said and done. So
That's
it's
awesome.
been an extremely solid process, in my
That's
opinion.
great. That's great. Now, share with people, what exactly is the VPP, or volume pricing program? What kind of what does that include? What kind of benchmarks do you have to hit to be able to take advantage of that? Again, for people that may not know.
Yeah, so that just kind of goes back to the pricing tiers, the price class that I just discussed. But
Yeah.
we're willing to work with a lot of these guys, understanding a majority of the SGI members are pushed either to go that service route. And then
Yeah.
I know that there are some guys out there that still dabble in the new construction or even the commercial.
Yeah.
If you get into that new construction model, it's a totally different business concept. And if somebody comes to us and says, hey, I need 200 of these kit of smokes, on one PO, we're willing to work with those guys.
That's great.
So, it's like just life in general. We need to have that kind of communication to know what projects are being worked on, and is this something that needs to be forecasted going forward?
Sure.
So again, we just want to make sure that we can accommodate that member. So the pricing again is pretty flexible out
Sure.
there. And going back to having that product within our assortment, I would say probably 95 to 97% of the customers actually go to a counter. And I'm just talking about our customers in general.
Sure.
But, when we were Barnett, we've just been built on shipping over the last 60 years. So kind of the rule of thumb is that if you order it by 2 o'clock, you should get it next day delivery. I think everybody is aware with what's going on with just the logistics out there. Somebody's read some article of either stuff coming over from China and that stuff just hanging out in the port for 2 months.
Right.
And then just a lot of the LTL issues that are going on right now. But where I'm going with all this stuff is that if we don't have, for example, if Dallas is your feeder branch for your business, if we run out of kit of smokes, we have the availability to turn it to either Houston, to San Antonio,
Right.
Nashville, Tennessee. So that's where I think we've had a lot of success really
100%.
since the pandemic, is that a lot of guys have been coming to us saying, hey, our local supply house doesn't have this product. I'm going into the Home Depot stores. I can't find a box of single pole 10 amp breakers. But then when they reach out to us, conceptually, we should have pallets of that. And so if we're depleted out of that Dallas, DC, we can turn it to the Houston. So we do have that flexibility to fill out a lot of those orders, where I think a lot of our competition is just having headwinds, as many manufacturers have just put a lot of their suppliers on allocation.
No, I'm glad you got into that, and I was going to talk about it a little bit later, but let's go ahead and chase that. It is strange. I mean, there are shortages. It seems to be in everything, and I see lumber prices, and it's just nuts. So having the pulse in the industry that you do have, is there anything you see coming down the pike that members should be aware of, that if they're smaller, they should try and plan for? Is there anything you're catching wind of?
Yeah, my biggest suggestion would just be conscious of that flat rate book pricing. I mean, I've heard that there's potentially another water heater price increase coming along. We've already had 3 this year, and it's just not us. It's Ream, it's Bradford, and it's A.O. Smith. So it's all coming down the pipeline. And what's driving a lot of that is just the rolled steel. It's just become so expensive. And I was just reading an article this morning where I think lumber has gone up 300% since November. So it's just been a crazy world. And the resin, everything that went on down in Texas 2 months ago, the resin plant and whatnot, breakers are a hot commodity right now. And I just heard Leviton, or any kind of wall plate, I've heard that a lot of those manufacturers are starting just to have challenges. So it's really across the board. And what I would suggest to a lot of the members is plan your purchases. Try and get out as much as possible in front of that, because I think just in today's times, you can't drop POs over to suppliers at the 12th hour. I mean, we've been pretty fortunate where we've been able to deliver, but there are just Eaton, for example, in Square D. I mean, they have everybody on allocation. Eaton breakers are definitely a challenge to find out there. And if you're going in to do a panel swap out or something like that, as much lead time as possible would be suggested. And it's just, everything is just kind of rolling down. I think we can all relate to going to the grocery store. I think all of our bills have gone up, and just the pandemic as a whole, picking up furniture, just stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Appliances are a mess. I mean, the lead time is a couple months out. So this thing has impacted every facet of our business, and it's just, the price increases are going to continue to go up from what I've been able to gather. But it's just staying on top of that flat rate book pricing so that you continue to maintain the margins that you need to. But it's knowing how and when to pivot as best as possible.
Yeah, well, you're right. As someone that moved about 6 months ago, I still have that furniture. I'm waiting for it. It's just nuts. People were shocked, and now as this is drug on, and people are friends ordering refrigerators and stuff, they go, "Yeah, you're right." And like, it's just insane, but very interesting. But I want to be sure to give you kudos on the show. We have had countless members that have just sung your praises and how responsive you've been to their needs, and new clients of yours that may have been SGI members for some time but may have not used you in the past. And they go, I just can't find X, Y, and Z. And we've said, well, you better talk to Ryan. And they go, really? And they go, yeah, yes, trust me. And you just, your responsiveness is incredible, and the service is great. So again, for anyone in SGI or outside of SGI, you should look at these guys. They do great work. So I want to be sure to give you some credit for that.
I sincerely appreciate that. And, much of that credit goes to our field sales reps and inside sales reps and, our DCs, because, if we all aren't working in sync, it just makes for a challenge to execute for the members. So, we're here to help you guys out. We realize the doors have to be open, and we're going to do whatever we can to take care of the members. I think that's why this partnership over the last 20 years has just been so strong. And, I tell a lot of the members that as much as we don't like hearing, the negative facts, I appreciate that, because I can't fix what I don't know about. So if we ever screw up, I expect to be on speed dial. Send me an email, and I'll roll up my sleeves and do what I can to fix it. But if I don't know that we did anything wrong, I just can't fix it. And that is my ask to a lot of the members, is just, if we mess up, please reach out to myself or the sales rep, and we'll have an all hands on deck to get it taken care of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my experience in interacting with you with everything has been, you're on top of it. I don't know if you get any sleep at all. So, but I appreciate it. That's for sure. And I know our members appreciate it.
Support for this podcast comes from Owens Corning Air Care Contractor Program. Uncover hidden opportunities and take your HVAC business to the next level with Owens Corning. Owens Corning has done the work to provide you with a turnkey system from sales training to in-home tools with a simple story that practically sells itself. Add duct replacement and attic insulation to your service offering as a part of our program and elevate your sales today. For more information, visit owenscorning.com/retrofit-contractor.
Welcome back to the show. I'm interviewing Ryan Fidgeon of Home Depot Pro. Ryan shared with us so far his background along with how he works with SGI members every day, and he revealed some insight into what will be happening with material shortages and price increases potentially in the near future. Now we're going to change the focus a little bit. We're going to dive headfirst into VMI programs and how they can make managing your inventory easier and when's the right time to make that commitment in your business. So let's jump back into my conversation with Ryan Fidgeon, a National Accounts Manager with Home Depot Pro. Okay, to change subjects a little bit, the benefit, I guess, of this strange time that we live in is that people have been doing really well. Or we've got members who are just killing it. They're having record years. They're growing. And the members we work with are very growth focused. They want to grow their businesses. And a big part of it as they get bigger is this idea of, vendor management inventory programs. When is a VMI a right time for me? And there's a lot of small contractors that we work with that are, they're aspiring to get bigger, but they don't know anything about it. So maybe from your experience, what size should a contractor be considering? I mean, I know obviously all the trades, the revenue levels are different, but do you have a rule of thumb of when someone should be thinking about a VMI program?
Certainly. So rule of thumb in order to go down that VMI road is about $750,000 in annual spend. Now that's excluding HVAC equipment.
Yeah.
But, the great thing about working with us is we take on all three trades. So there are members that we are currently working with right now that started off as an electrical vertical and said, hey, I'm curious about jumping into the plumbing or HVAC side. So again, and by working with SGI over the last 20 years, we can help those guys out because I think a lot of members just kind of scratch their heads and, hey, what kind of products do, we take into a new trade? And the great thing about the VMI is we kind of pull that guesswork out of it. And more importantly, we're freeing up that capital that they would traditionally have back in that warehouse. So if we have a customer that is currently doing electrical, that has an electrical VMI with us, and they decide to jump into the plumbing, and we go to those guys and say, hey, we would suggest bringing in this Badger 5 and Syncerator 750 and maybe 3 or 4 others. Well, if we find out that out of those 5 and Syncerator SKUs that we bring in, they aren't using 2 of them, all we're doing is creating a transfer back to the DC. So there's a huge value add with that vendor managed inventory program. I mean, we probably pull anywhere between $100,000 to $120,000 worth of capital off their books. So again, they can take that money, add that to new trucks, new marketing, 100%. And continue to scale out. And then that full-time employee that we bring on site, I mean, he's on our payroll, but his only responsibility is to take care of that member. So, all in, we're probably looking at $160,000 to $180,000 in truly hard identifiable costs that we can pull off the books. And there's things that we can do in it that will create some soft cost savings by having some efficiencies. I think a lot of the guys, having been out there in the trenches, probably one of the biggest asks that many of the business owners had is, hey, I need to standardize all my trucks, because a lot of these guys they know that they need to hold their techs accountable, but you put 10 plumbing techs in a room and you ask those guys, what flapper do we use? All 10 of those guys are going to tell you something different. So again, a lot of the data that we have, we can present back to that owner. So if he's stocking 600 to 700 SKUs per truck, we might be able to go to and say, hey, these are the A and B velocity moving SKUs that you need to have on your truck. we probably just removed $1,000 to $1,500 worth of capital on his truck. And it's all about turning that capital, freeing up some of that cash flow so that, again, they can put that into other aspects of the business. And the great thing about the VMI is we don't charge anything for having that program. That our main concern is just being able to hit that $750,000 threshold. But they are also eligible to get those rebates, those quarterly rebates, the double dip vendors and all that stuff. So, you just talk about that volume and you factor in those rebates on top of the hard cost, soft cost savings. It just accrues very quick. So it's the right program in order to scale out. It's probably not for anybody. We have 91 of those scattered throughout the country. We've been doing it for 15 years. I've traveled around and have seen many of the quote unquote VMIs out there. And we're on the same operating platform as our 1 million square foot DCs. It's not a Sharpie on the front of a bin box and just going through and shaking it. There's logic behind it. So as we pull a 1/2-inch copper coupling, it automatically deducts that in our system, so that once it hits the minimum, the feeder branch says, hey, this 1/2-inch copper coupling is beneath the min. It'll bring us back to that max quantity and business as usual. So it's a fully automated system.
That's fantastic. That's incredible. You mentioned the flapper debacle that plumbers deal with. What are some other just common problems you guys see when you walk into a VMI program and you kind of observe what the contractor has and go, oh my gosh, okay, this is what we need to do? There's some other, because I think by hearing this, other contractors will go, oh wow, yeah, we have that going on right now. Are there certain things you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really kind of the lack of organization. And, the reality is, like, those techs will go to the local supply house, even though they need 5 1/2-inch copper couplings. They pick up 10 for that just because.
Just
and as an owner, you just cringe because it's not their money, and that's.
They don't think about it.
And they don't. And before you know it, the owner has 200 of those 1/2-inch copper couplings once they go out there and clean out the truck. And then, they have probably just as much back in that warehouse. But again, a lot of the data that we can provide back to these members, whether they're VMI sized or not. And again, this is what I did for 6 years. And I've rolled up my sleeves with many of the members out there just to kind of help them get that initial step going, because a lot of members just don't know where to start. But having done that, we can help kind of give them that nudge. Hey, this is what we need to focus on. And then I tell all the members that if we're the primary supplier, we'll pull down a usage at the end of the year. We'll bump it up against the initial list that we identified. Hey, what have you bought from us that has volume to it? And then what items haven't you bought? Because at the end of the day, the stuff that's sitting in the warehouse, let's get that stuff out and let's bring in some of those faster moving SKUs. So again, probably one of the biggest misconceptions that I still hear in this role is members will come up at the shows or whatnot, say, we can't do business with you because we aren't a VMI. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because we work with 1 truck operations and we work with 100 truck operations. And we have a program for really anybody in between. So
that's great.
So we want to grow with those guys. We look at that as a partnership, and we got to start somewhere. And again, just kind of what we've learned over the years between the truck stock list we can send out to many of the members. You have to start somewhere, and it's not going to be perfect out of the gate, but we can mold it eventually into something being close to perfect.
Right. No, I think it's interesting. You highlighted you're a partner. I just interviewed Tim Bolden, and I've known Tim forever. And he goes, you guys you're the perfect partner, because he goes, I can't imagine scaling to the size we're at and doing it ourselves. It just would be too many headaches. And you guys just make it so much easier, and you work with them and you're part of the team. Like he said, they're part of the team, which is all you can ask for an outside vendor or partner, right? Is to have that feeling, which is just incredible. Go ahead, please.
No, Tim has been a great partner and just extremely supportive. I lean on Tim, it feels like a couple times a year, and just continues to help us out. But going back to that whole VMI concept, the person on site is called our inventory control specialist. And even though he's on our payroll, I mean, we want him going to the holiday parties. We want him being involved in the 4th of July parties, whatever whatever company function they have going on, I want him, or we want them to be ingrained with their business as well, because
Yeah.
he's instrumental. I mean,
Sure.
he's our face. He's the face of our company, and he has just as many headwinds as we do. But when you're in front of the customer, especially that size, and then we have regional managers to support and a director that oversees all the locations. There's layers upon layers.
Yeah.
That when we hear about those issues, we jump on it, and I think that is what has made the VMI program so successful over the years. Is just our ability to jump on things and react pretty quick. So
Right.
a lot of a huge kudos out there to all the ICSs that run all the SGI VMIs. They are a huge piece of the puzzle.
That's awesome. What are their backgrounds? Like, what's the training? I'm just inquisitive. Like, what kind of background do these people have? I mean, and what's the training like to get them up and running? You can't I mean, that's a big commitment to stick someone in there. You want them to do a good job, right? Because it's a lot of money that's at stake.
It is. And what's very unique about that is, as an owner, you want somebody, you want a tech, just being completely honest, because you want to plug somebody in. And as much jargon that's out there in the industry, they want to be able to come to the counter and say, hey, I need a bullhorn, and for that guy to understand, exactly what they're talking about. But the downside to that is having to run our systems and all that. So, it's really kind of straddling the fence. You almost want to have somebody that is IT and somebody that is a tech, because again, there's a lot of stuff that is being done behind the scenes. And, while it might look like any given day you go out back and the ICS is just, working on the computer, the reality is that he's probably going out there and adjusting some of the inventories. He might be keying in product to come in aside for a big project or something like that. But from a background perspective, it's a mixed bag out there. I mean, it's not like it's not like we go for somebody that has come out of a retail store. There's been guys that have come out of supply houses now. One of the benefits through the acquisition of the Home Depot is that we've had quite a few people come from the retail side over into our world. So
that makes sense.
From 7 days, not necessarily 7 days a week, but you lose your weekends, I think, in that retail segment to more or less a Monday to Friday opportunity. So the other side to that is, I think you get guys that have some of that industry knowledge, that are familiar with a lot of that product knowledge. And what I tell a lot of the owners is, even if we brought somebody in from that might have more of an IT background versus an ideal tech background, again, you put them behind a counter for 30 minutes and it's the amount of SKUs that we have on site are anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200 SKUs. And again, with how those techs talk, you ask those guys like, hey, how do you hook up a water heater? And I guarantee you by the second week, he probably could hook up a water heater at his house. And it's just, it's being in the trenches. And I think that over time, you can definitely groom them to understand kind of how the trades work. So it's no cookie cutter that we shoot for. It's just, I think we go for the best applicant that is most importantly customer facing, that can get along and have conversations with the techs, the owners, and wear many different hats depending on who you're talking to. But more importantly, being the face of the company and just handling business. Because like you said, it's a great opportunity. We're very fortunate to be on site with a lot of the SGI members, and we want to do what's right for the customer, and he is our face and ears.
Right. So let's say I sign up for a VMI program. What's the onboarding process like? How long does it take? What are the general steps along the way?
So really the first part of the process is getting the inventory dialed in. And it's the one part that I just stress and harp with the field sales reps and a lot of the owners, because if we don't get that right, it makes that ramp up period challenging. And look, in today's times, we all live in spreadsheets, and probably once you hit line 50 out of 1,500 SKUs, you're cross-eyed. And it's not fun going through that, but There are certain items, the duct tape, for example. I mean, as much as we preach product standardization, we probably have 75 different rolls of duct tape. And the reality is duct tape down here in Florida is probably be different than the duct tape up in Minnesota. And then you have $3 roll of duct tape, $40 roll of duct tape. So again, it's kind of knowing, what product groups you need to dig into to make sure that you have that stuff dialed. Capacitors is probably a good one where you have import, you have domestic, but the inventory piece is in my opinion the most important part of the process. And I just stress that you either do the legwork on the front end or you do the legwork on the back end. And then the optics, if we're doing it on the back end, is usually not favorable to the techs and the owner. So once we get that inventory piece style, we have a team that, once a usage is exported and sent down to us, we have a team that'll go in there, hard cross it. So we go back to the owner and say, hey, this is what we're looking like on day one. So over time, we'll start to build that out. We have what we call regional items for like Honeywell. Honeywell is a vendor that we work with.
Sure.
Probably one of the best examples are the Honeywell humidifiers. We probably didn't have that in stock up until about 5 years ago. But again, a lot of the data that we were bringing in through these VMIs, we were providing to our merchants, and they were starting to realize, like, this Honeywell humidifier is kind of a staple in the industry. So the data that we've been able to get out of that, we've been able to bring into our main stream of channels. So, we won't get all those SKUs out of the gate. We had those regional items, which is something that we work on within the first 90 days of opening up the VMI.
Okay.
But
90 days.
But we also request for 2 years worth of financials because there's a lot of exposure within this program.
Sure.
And then once we go to contract phase, once that is signed off, that is really when the whole project plan starts rolling.
Okay.
And the project plan, rule of thumb, is anywhere between 10 to 12 weeks. Now, when somebody signs up, they're at the mercy of other VMIs that sign prior to those guys. So it might be 16 to 18 weeks by the time we get to those guys. So unfortunately, it's just kind of when the contract comes into our team. But the first 10 weeks, it's all really kind of behind the scenes. We're loading the inventory. We're opening up the SKUs at the feeder branch. We're recruiting for that inventory control, the inventory control specialist. That is probably the biggest challenge, just because it's such a unique skill set. And then once we hit week 10, the first week, it's all manual labor. Week 9, we are usually sending in the racking, we are sending in the bin boxes, we are sending in the counter, we are sending in the computers. We bring in everything. Kind of what we ask for in the contract is 2,500 square feet.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's not as hard line, but as the business starts to grow, we just want to make sure that we have enough room that we can grow with them.
100%.
But we bring in our own network. We bring in our own data line. We bring the own counter, the own rack, and own bin box. We just ask for a blank template that once it is built out, we need it secured. Usually a 6-foot chain link fence.
Right. I've seen those. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it just keeps the honest people honest. If they want to get over the fence, they're going to do it.
It's the truth.
That's just reality. But yeah, we will send a team out there during week 10. At the end of the week, we really have a fully functional DC. The inventory has arrived, the bin boxes, the racking, we're on the network. And week 2 is really sitting down with the owner and to kind of figure out how that PO process works. And what we're trying to do at that point is merge the two worlds together. So week 2 is usually going through a testing phase, whether they're on some kind of inventory platform or inventory operating system. What is that connectivity and how does that workflow go, the credits and all that. So it's really trying to get a lot of that stuff hashed out. And then, the second week during the build up or during the build out is that I would go grab a lot of the text, because going back to that whole spreadsheet mentality where it's just mind numbing, I would have the text walk the aisles, because the reality is, like, that inventory is never perfect when you come in, and there's always some stragglers, either that we miss or we brought in the wrong SKU. And that's when I want to capture that stuff.
That's a great idea. I like that. Yeah.
If we brought in the wrong T-stat, let's get that thing out. Let's bring in the right one. Just to ensure that ramp up process is as seamless as possible.
What gets buy-in from the technicians as well, who might be like, what is going on, if they've never been in an environment with a company that has this, by you walking with them and showing that you're being responsive, that goes a long way, I would assume.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those guys tend to receive it better. I think as
Yeah,
time grows, because
for
they
sure.
understand the true meaning of it and how it's going to help the business and whatnot. But
Right.
it's keeping a lot of those guys out of the supply houses, knowing that many of the members go out there and they charge a premium, they put their name on it. When
Yeah.
those guys are going into the local supply houses, they don't know what kind of product they're using and
Right.
picking up. And if they install something and has a pinhole leak, it floods a basement, that now creates other issues as an
Yeah.
owner. But again, having those owners come in on a day-to-day basis, it should be daily replenishment depending on how that company dispatches the techs.
Yeah.
But they
I was
should
gonna
be
ask
running
that.
a
Yeah.
leaner truck. There's
Oh
accountability
yeah.
down to that truck. We can build out dummy truck programs so that if an owner thinks that something shady might be going on, they back in truck 10. The ICS and somebody from their company will rip all that shelving off. We take the dummy
Mm.
truck, we load that on the truck. There's about 15 minutes of downtime. So he's back out, and then we'll both go through there and audit it. So, any
Wow, that's
other
great.
we'll
Yeah.
bring back into the VMI.
Yeah.
Any shortages, that's probably when that company's employees going to the owner saying, hey, we're missing 6 sump pumps, which then throws up the red flags, and
Right.
that we then back out of that situation, and that's up
Oh,
to
for
the
sure.
owner to go
Yeah,
to the
yeah, yeah,
county
yeah,
and
yeah.
have that
Right.
conversation. But
Right.
a
But you make it
lot of
easier for them to identify that those situations happen.
exactly, and
Yeah.
that is the whole concept of
Yeah.
the VMI. And it's again, it's truly customizable. Chances are some of these members' pain points, I guarantee we have encountered probably everything that's out there in the industry.
Sure.
So
Sure.
it we've been doing it for 15 years, like I said, and like to think that we're probably some of the industry experts when it comes to that.
For sure. Well, and you were talking about keeping the techs out of the regular Home Depots and stuff like that.
Mhm.
If there's any technicians that are watching or listening to this, that just makes you more, efficient. You're able to do more jobs. You're able to make more money. So it really is a benefit for everybody. Saves customers time. You're not running to the Home Depot to get that whatever that you forgot to get replenished. So it's a win-win-win for everybody, it sounds like.
Yeah, no, we want to try and keep the techs on site as much as possible, as many of the owners do. So
For
again,
sure.
it's gas time, it's time, and it just
Yeah.
all accrues. So
Right.
if you can make minor tweaks to the business, eventually the business should be bringing in more capital, which will then allow the scalability, the
Mhm.
benefits, and so on and so forth.
Have you been able to? Have you gotten any hard numbers? Have owners share with you how by that program, the VMI programs, help them profit wise? They go, hey, because you've streamlined it, we're able to see, or they keep that to themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's probably closer to their chest than, I mean, we
Sure.
don't necessarily go out there and ask those guys, but I know
Oh,
that
sure.
we have
Sometimes
been able
you
to,
volunteered.
yeah.
You guys have saved us so much money. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
No, I know that we have helped those guys lower their cost of goods, but
Sure.
it's going back to those hard costs that I just closed out of the gate between the carrying costs, the inventory,
Mhm.
the full-time employee. I mean, the guy that
Yeah.
was running their warehouse, I think there's always been that fear that he will lose his job, because a lot of our reps do work with the buyers in the business, and when they hear kind of what that concept is, they're kind of shaking in their boots.
Yeah.
It, is my job numbered? And of all the members that I've worked with over the years, just setting up the VMIs and whatnot, they allocate them elsewhere in the business where he's now driving revenue versus
Right.
just being on the books, managing the
Sure.
inventory and whatnot. So it's it's one of those where we have definitely been able to help a lot of these owners out from different facets of the business, but it's putting some of those existing resources maybe in other areas of the business that
Sure.
that they'll be able to generate more revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the process you outlined, obviously, it's a little time intensive up front, but maybe just to be reassuring. I mean, you've probably worked with certain guys for years and years. So once it's in place, I don't want to say it's set and forget it, because members are going to look at material costs and all that,
Mhm.
but it does make it so much easier, and it makes everything so much more efficient in the long run.
Yeah, and you're right. You're right on. It almost is that set it and forget it now. A couple of the brands that we have brought in since acquisition is Toto.
Right.
Permaliner is another one. I remember, going back 13 years, that stuff was just big out there in the California markets, and
Right.
and I think over time, it has gravitated towards the East Coast, and now there's just a lot of plumbers offering that now, and
Mm-hmm.
rather than those guys having to go out there and cut POs directly to Permaliner that was setting them back 15 grand between the resin, the liner, and all that stuff, they can
Sure.
now order it through us, and
That's
it's only $5,000. So rather than those guys just carrying excess inventory, they
100%.
can order what is needed there.
Yeah.
So again, it's we can bring in additional SKUs as that partnership continues to evolve. And going back, with the earlier examples where we're on site with electricians, as those guys go out there and jump into a new trade, again, as long as we had that space, bring it on. And we just want to grow with those guys. So
Sure.
it's really all that we're doing, even if they stay in that same trade, but they add trucks, we're just increasing the max quantity. So it's just super easy to grow with these guys. All the legwork is really done probably within the first 90 to 180 days. I think that's when we're knocking off a lot of the cobwebs. Now, some of the locations, being down here in Jacksonville, Florida, it's just hot as heck all year round. But, you get up there more in the Minnesota Northeast, where you have all 4 seasons, that might take a little bit of time, because if we're setting up in the summer, we haven't really dabbled into that winter product mix, and vice versa. So you do have that seasonality product mix out there, but I would say probably after being on site for an entire year where you have those 4 seasons, I think we have a pretty dialed in. Yeah, exactly.
Sure. It's an evolution, but again, once it's figured out, hopefully it becomes where it's far fewer headaches for members moving forward. It just becomes a part of the business you don't have to worry as much about. You can worry about growing top line, training, all that good stuff that increases gross margin, all that more fun stuff for our members, because I know how they think, and that's what they want to worry about.
No, we just want to pull the inventory burden off their plate and allow them, like you said, to focus on those other facets of the business. We all know that they have plenty on their plate, so to pull that inventory piece off, hopefully they can scale the business, go out there and acquire new companies, and just continue to grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Ryan, we've covered a lot today. Really appreciate your time. Just any final things you want to add to members or non-members that this kind of cap it off?
Yeah, no, like I said, I can't thank you enough. Corporate SGI, everybody that I touch daily, weekly basis over there, we extremely appreciate the support that you have given us over the last 20 years. And, to all the members out there that have been working with us for the entire 20 years, or new members that just came on board and just went through EP. It's truly a pleasure working with everybody, and just love building relationships, and we're in it for the long haul. Again, I use that term partnerships very strongly, because that's just, it's got to be a win-win situation for, I think, everybody involved. And we're here to help you guys out, whether it's PPE, product, plumbing, electrical, HVAC. Feel free to reach out to myself, your sales rep, and we want to see that SGI group continue to be successful, because if they aren't successful, we aren't successful. So we're in it for the long haul, and appreciate you putting this together today, Bob. It's been extremely gratifying, and anything that we can do to help you guys out, please let us know.
All right, wonderful. Ryan, thank you again for so much of your time. Lots of great insight. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day, buddy.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for the time.
Take care. Go help some people now instead of talking to me.
Take care.
All right, Ryan. Take care, brother.
Bye-bye.
That's Ryan Fidgeon, National Account Manager for Specialty Trades with Home Depot Pro. Thanks for joining us. If you feel like you have a great story worth sharing that would also help other contractors, please email me at bhouchin@yoursgi.com. Also, if you enjoyed today's show, please, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're on your favorite podcast player, leave us a 5-star review. And please join us for future episodes. It's my promise to you to continue to interview successful contractors as well as other influential individuals in the contracting space. This has been The Successful Contractor, powered by Success Group International.
Support for this podcast comes from Home Depot Pro. With an inventory of more than 100,000 products, the Home Depot Pro's product selection includes both the name brands you seek and the exclusive brands you trust. For more information, go to www.ebarnett.com.
The Successful Contractor Podcast is part of the Success Group International family. SGI is the largest member-owned best practices organization for independent residential services contractors. SGI provides its members a competitive edge through proven proprietary management tools and expertise, marketing programs, training, and group buying power, along with a highly active and eager to help membership. For more information about Success Group International, visit www.yoursgi.com.